My fellow Nigerians, as your future president, I want to comment today on the victory of Kemi Badenoch, a British woman of Nigerian descent, in the UK Conservative Party's leadership election in November and its implications for Nigeria and, of course, for Nigeria UK relations. I will begin with some remarks made at a memorial lecture November 26 by Matthew Kuka, the Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto and the founder of the Kuka Center in Abuja, which promotes good governance, among other things. Starting his remarks, Bishop Kuka said, and I quote, "I am disappointed that we are not celebrating Kemi Badenoch. I am surprised that women politicians in Nigeria have said nothing." End of quote. Bishop Kuka added that although the Conservative Party has had three other women leaders, starting with Margaret Thatcher, Badenoch's rise to the position at 44 was due to her sheer courage. He was also frustrated with Nigerians criticizing and insulting her, saying the Nigerian political arena doesn't favor such achievements, especially by female politicians. More recently, in a December 10 article, Bishop Kuka wrote, and I quote, "Badenoch's speed of progress, that's after becoming an MP in 2017, is phenomenal by any measure. She had no visible name recognition, experience, age, or even resources. This is the Conservative Party of Margaret Thatcher. This is the party that celebrates its 100th and 90th anniversary this year. To ascend to the top of this party at the age of 44 is by any measure an historic achievement. To do so as a woman, and a black woman at that, the daughter of immigrants and a wife and a mother, is worthy of celebration." End of quote. Bishop Kuka added, and I quote, "Kemi's ascendance is special. It points at the possibilities and challenges that lie ahead for those who dare." End of quote. Kuka also took aim at those criticizing her for calling out Nigeria's cancer of corruption. He said, and I quote, "As a former Secretary of State for International Trade, Kemi likely knows more about the state of our sleaze, that's our corruption, than even we are prepared to admit." Bishop Kuka concluded his very well-researched and very well-written article with some words of advice for Badenoch and for Nigeria. For Badenoch, he wrote, and I quote, "Miss Badenoch must also know that she should not stray too far from her natural constituency, as every politician soon learns. She has shown that her identity does not define her, but she cannot either ignore that she is black and the daughter of immigrants. It would rob her of the authenticity and largeness of spirit required of all transformative leaders. Good diplomacy must ensure a smooth relationship between her and Nigeria. She needs Nigeria, and Nigeria needs her very much." End of quote. Turning to Nigeria, Kuka wrote, and I quote, "Nigeria needs to strategically position herself and take the lead in establishing and nurturing relationships with her sons and daughters in the diaspora. Nigeria need not see them as simply remittances donors. I hope that Nigeria takes Kemi quite seriously for its own interest." End of quote. In fact, I very strongly recommend Bishop Kuka's article in full. It is titled "Kemi Badenoch, Some Thoughts and a Prayer." Meanwhile, one of the Badenoch critics Bishop Kuka referred to in the article is Vice President Kashim Shettima. Speaking at a recent public function, Shettima contrasted Badenoch with Rishi Sunak, her predecessor as some Conservative Party leader, and said, and I quote, "Rishi Sunak never denigrated his nation of ancestry or poured venom on India. We are proud of her in spite of her efforts at denigrating her country of origin." End of quote. The denigration Shettima and co are talking about is when Badenoch said in October, for example, that, and I quote, "This is my country," referring to the UK. "I don't want it to become like the place I ran away from," referring to Nigeria. Or earlier this month, when at the International Democracy Union Forum, she said, and I quote, "I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, a place where almost everything seemed broken." End of quote. Did she lie? Absolutely not. Nigeria is indeed very poorly governed. We all know that. And that's why we must strive to change it for the better. And that's also why, like Bishop Kuka advised, it's important that we take Kemi Badenoch seriously and nurture our relationship as a country with her. And that's because she's tough and means business, literally and otherwise. Indeed, in Badenoch's very first Prime Minister's Questions (PMQs), she congratulated President Trump on his impressive victory in the US and asked Prime Minister Keir Starmer if his Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, had apologized to Trump during their September meeting. She also criticized Starmer because most of his cabinet signed a motion to ban President Trump in his first term from addressing the British Parliament and asked whether he will extend an invitation to Trump to do so on his next visit to the UK. When Starmer dodged the question, Badenoch reminded him in Parliament that the US is the UK's single biggest trading partner and has a special relationship with the UK. She also asked if he will restart negotiations on a free trade deal that Trump had proposed with the UK, which Biden later cancelled, particularly given the threat of increased tariffs on British and other exports to the UK, which Trump is considering. Badenoch also said Starmer's budget was a copy and paste of Bidenomics, meaning Biden's failed economic policies in the US, consisting of high spending and high inflation. And she then cleverly asked if Starmer was going to change course or if he, like Biden, wanted to be a one-term leader. That's effective high-stakes politics. In her second PMQs, when a Labour MP complained about her reading pre-prepared questions, she smartly responded that she can do that, but the Prime Minister has to answer questions offhand instead of reading from scripts. Similarly, in her third PMQs on November 27, she said Starmer was taking credit for investments that she had negotiated while serving as business secretary. Indeed, Badenoch is so pro-business that during a speech at the Confederation of British Industry conference on November 25, she said to fix the loss of trust that business had in the Conservatives in the last general election, I quote, "I have made sure that the two people who are in the most business-facing roles in my shadow cabinet, that's the shadow chancellor or finance minister, and the shadow business secretary, are people who have run companies themselves." End of quote. What's my point, you may ask? Well, Nigeria should absolutely take advantage of Badenoch's business-friendly record and posturing and start exploring a possible future and mutually beneficial Nigeria-UK trade deal. I know that despite Prime Minister Starmer and the Labour Party's widening unpopularity, Badenoch may not become Prime Minister in 2029 after the next general election or prior. That's going by the Reform UK Party's search in the polls. But sure, such discussions could become a template for negotiations with just about any future UK government. And such a deal could include, for example, some English Premier League investment in Nigeria, giving the league's extreme popularity in Nigeria, as well as more reciprocal slots for Nigerian airlines at major British airports. Also, on November 27, alongside her shadow Home Secretary, Badenoch spoke about immigration and promised tough measures to reduce overall net migration into the UK while maintaining zero tolerance for illegal immigration. That's actually a point Nigeria can seize on to encourage her to support more British investment in Nigeria to help create the conditions that will reduce net migration from Nigeria to the UK. My fellow Nigerians, there you have it. Those are my thoughts from a Nigerian perspective on the significance and substance behind the emergence of Kemi Badenoch as the leader of the UK's Conservative Party. Considering that she's just a month into the job, I am sure that I will occasionally react to other relevant developments involving her, particularly those that will be directly related to Nigeria. May God bless you and your families, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.